Dear friends of the Global Study on Children Deprived of Liberty, I am extremely sorry that I am not able to come to Montevideo. I would have loved to come again to Uruguay and meet all the friends that I have there. I'm really sorry that I cannot be there. But I'm very grateful to Mary Berloff, who is one of the best-known experts on juvenile justice in Latin America. She's a member also of my advisory group and the research group that she is actually representing me in my role as independent expert leading the global study. Why do we need a global study on children deprived of liberty? Similar than the earlier studies by Graça Magel on children in armed conflict, by Paulo Sergio Pinheiro on violence against children, in order to change a certain aspect of children's rights and the situation of children. And deprivation of liberty, in my opinion, is directly following on the violence study because it is a form of structural violence. Simply the main message should be children should not be detained, they should not be behind bars, they should be allowed to develop their life in freedom. This is very, very important. And that's why we need evidence. Because to convey the message is one thing, but the second, it needs to be based on evidence. We want to know how many children are currently deprived of liberty in the criminal justice system or in migration-related detention, etc., all around the world. We simply do not know. What are the reasons why so many kids are in fact detained and behind bars? What can be done in order to change that? Are there best practices of states, etc.? So we need this evidence in order to be much stronger, to put life into that provision of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child that clearly says deprivation of liberty of children should only be a measure of last resort. And if really absolutely necessary as an exception, then only for the shortest possible period of time. Now, the global study, as earlier ones, is a joint exercise of many different stakeholders. First of all, states. After all, it was states who decided in 2014 to invite the Secretary General to start a global study on children deprived of liberty. But it's also UN agencies. He established a UN task force, which is comprised of the two special representatives of the Secretary General, both on children in armed conflict and violence against children, but also UNICEF, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the High Commissioner for Refugees, UNODC. So there are various UN agencies working together. Thirdly, non-governmental organizations. There are currently more than 150 NGOs that are actively involved in the global study. The global study would not exist if NGOs would not really have been working for quite a long time together with the Committee on the Rights of the Child to really request a global study on children deprived of liberty. And now they are working pro bono, actively involved in developing and writing the global study, together also with representatives of academic institutions. We have the Global Campus of Human Rights that is based in Venice, but about 100 universities around the world that are involved in the global study, and many other academics that are working in different research groups. And that brings me to my next point. We are covering 6 different types of deprivation of liberty, and for each of these 6 types, a special research group have been set up, consisting again of representatives of academia, NGOs, UN agencies, the advisory board, and others. One is deprivation of liberty in the context of criminal justice, so juvenile justice systems. The second is children living with their incarcerated parents in prison. The third is migration-related detention, migration and refugee-related detention. The fourth is children in institutions that might be orphanages or special institutions for children with disabilities, special institutions for children that are in conflict with drugs or other reasons because they are difficult to educate, etc. Then we have another group on children deprived of liberty in the context of armed conflict, that means primarily child soldiers, and those who are deprived of liberty for security, national security related reasons, in particular terrorism. But we also have own research groups on cross-cutting issues such as gender, such as disabilities, also on child participation and the impact of the deprivation of liberty on the health of children. I'm happy to report that we are very far already. I was just in New York to brief the General Assembly about the progress we have made already, and I'm extremely grateful to all those different stakeholders who are working together in the different research groups, so that I can say already now we have first drafts. We are reviewing these first drafts of the different chapters. And I also got this feeling in New York, the reaction of states was much more positive, but also the reaction of UN agencies and other stakeholders. Everybody sees that despite the very, very limited financial resources that have been made available to the global study, we are doing really a great job. But it's only possible because so many people are working free of charge in order to make the global study a success. We also sent out a questionnaire to all states, but also all the other stakeholders, national human rights institutions, national preventive mechanisms, NGOs, UN agencies, etc., in February of this year, and we asked them to select the 26th of June as a snapshot date in order to collect data, so kind of asking every head of a detention center to collect the data. How many kids are there? How many girls? How many boys? Which age? Are they citizens or non-nationals, etc.? In the meantime, we got 86 replies, primarily from states, but also from other stakeholders. And we are getting on a daily basis more replies to our questionnaire, although the deadline was already the 1st of September. But my message to governments and also civil society is, if in relation to a particular country we have not yet received any kind of reply to the questionnaire, please still do it, collect the data, select another snapshot date, the 31st of October, for instance, and then really try to collect the data, because we are dependent. The global study can only be successful if we really have as much data as possible in order to really show the evidence about primarily the number of children deprived of liberty, the pathways, why are they actually deprived of liberty, and also what could be done against by means of best practices that can be followed also by other states. And that is also the main purpose of our regional consultations that we have had already in Africa. We had it in the Asia-Pacific region, in Europe. We will do another one in the Arab world soon, and also in the Caribbean. And this one is meant for the Latin American, but in particular the Mercosur region. The main purpose is again to come together all the different stakeholders and to share their experiences, to share data. So again, my appeal to all of you is to provide as many data as possible and to feed it in the global study. It's not only the snapshot on the one day, it's also data on the last 10 years. How many children were deprived of liberty in the last 10 years, for instance, in the administration of juvenile justice? What was the development? Was the number on the rise, or was it decreasing? If it was decreasing, why? Perhaps it's a reaction already to some kind of legal or practical reforms that contributed that less children are actually behind bars. So in that spirit, I wish you all a very successful meeting. I really hope that you will be able to discuss all the different types of deprivation of liberty, and that I will hear from Mary Beloff and from many others at the end of the day that this was a successful, and I'm sure it will be a successful meeting, so that we get also the relevant data from the Mercosur and perhaps the Latin American region in more general terms. All the best, and please accept again my apologies for personal reasons not being able to spend this day together with you in Montevideo. Bye-bye.